Well, we're fortunate enough to actually have an away show here, and I wouldn't call it away because it's actually located in Piscataway Township. We're at the RWJ Barnabas Athletic Performance Center here, and we're in the film room with none other than the Rutgers men's head basketball coach, Coach Steve Pikiell. So Coach Pikiell, it's great of you to stopping by. I am Piscataway. Normally we're in the basketball court with basketballs pounding around, but now some of the athletes are in there practicing because your 2023-2024 season's closing in upon you for starting, and we're going to have a series of questions to ask the coach's best, and he's always been gracious enough to be here, spend some time with us to talk to the people, not just in Piscataway Township, but Central New Jersey, because this station does cover about 250,000 people in viewership. So Coach, I'm going to get to the first incoming freshman on what kind of impact it's going to have. I mean, we were just talking a little bit before about transfer portals, and we'll get to that question in a few moments, but the freshmen that for this upcoming season coming in, what kind of impact have you had? Because you've lost a lot of key players from the last season.
First of all, welcome. It's awesome to have you here, and this is our beautiful film room.
I got to tell you, if you ever want to watch the Super Bowl or something like that, or a Coach Pikiell playing a national championship game, this is the place to watch it.
It really is. We got great facilities, and it's nice to have you. Mm-hmm. It's another exciting season, coming up, and every year you get newcomers. Yeah. So some leave. They're not lifetime contracts anymore. Kids come and go. You like to keep them here as long as you can. You appreciate their time, but when they decide to move on, you thank them for what they've done for you, and you look forward to a new crop. We have a terrific group of newcomers. We use the transfer portal to help our program. We also have, some freshmen. Michael Davis out of Georgia, outstanding player. The highest ranked recruit in school history, Gavin Griffiths, comes from Connecticut, Player of the Year in Connecticut.
Now that's your home state, if I remember.
That is where me and my 9 brothers and sisters grew up, and it's a great state, close enough to get
so
in.
Were you poaching on the University of Connecticut's territory there? Right there?
University of Connecticut got a lot of players, so it was nice of them to let us have one, out of the great state. But excited about this year's group, and they're going to help us a tremendous amount, and we're going to have another great season as we've had the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, that's great. How do you see you just alluded to the use the transfer portal. As the head coach now of several years at Rutgers, and with the rules had changed with the transfer portals, how are you adjusting? And not only that, more importantly, how are your colleagues around the country adjusting to the whole dynamics now with the transfer portal?
I think a lot of things hit college basketball at one time. The COVID hit, and that was an extra free year for all the student athletes. And then the transfer portal hit, which means you can transfer and be eligible right away. And name, image, and likeness, all at the same amount of time. And each one of them is very complex, and each one of them has a lot of different obstacles with it. Name, image, and likeness has been great. Our kids have been able to utilize that, make some money, utilize their name, image, and likeness to their advantage. The transfer portal, has become an everyday event. Kids have a lot of choices where they can go. But I think people are starting to figure out, the grass isn't always greener with the transfer portal. And I think some of our kids that we've utilized the transfer portal to come into our program have been great additions for us. So, you got to bob and weave a lot in basketball with all these new rules hitting at once. And we're managing it. And, it's like any job or any career. You got to manage the new obstacles that are in front of you.
Now, Cam Spencer, who was on a team obviously last year, used the transfer portal to go to another school, and that left a large hole in your backcourt. So the incoming freshmen, do you see any of the incoming freshmen going to be able to step up and fill that hole?
I mean, Gavin Griffiths, the #1 rated recruit we've ever had here. He's 6'8". He shoots the ball at the highest level of any player, that has come into our program. And Michael Davis is the most athletic guy in our program. So we added some pieces, and then Noah Fernandez came from UMass. He was one of their best players at UMass, their leading scorer. With those open scholarships, you're able to attract players. Austin Williams is a New Jersey kid who was the leading scorer for University of Hartford, led them to an NCAA tournament bid. So he's here in our program. Along with, Derek Simpson, a really good freshman last year.
And he had a lot of valuable playing time last year.
A lot of valuable. He's getting more this year.
Yeah.
So sometimes when players leave, it really helps the guys that are in the program too. And, Andre Hyatt's back. Cliff Amore is back, one of the best players in the country.
Well, we're going to get to him in a few minutes.
So we have a great group here, and I'm excited about, their abilities, and I'm excited about where they could take our program this year.
Now, when you recruit a freshman class, what type of chemistry are you looking for in that class?
It's like anything, any business that's out there. You want great chemistry, and you want them to really blend and mesh well. Usually on a roster, when you have really good veterans, it really helps your freshmen, because the veterans lead the freshmen and explain what they've been through as veteran players and what this league is like and what the challenges are. And we have really good leadership right now in our senior class with Mawat Mag and Oscar Palmquist and Andre Hyatt and Cliff. And now Noah comes in. He's a point guard from UMass, and he's got some really, really good leadership qualities too. So I'm excited what he brings. So chemistry is always a big part of any year. If you're going to have a good team, you probably had good chemistry.
Okay. Now, who are you looking for to be the team leadership roles on the team?
Honestly, our veteran guys that have been around. Cliff has been here for 4 years. Andre's been here. Oscar
Now,
Palm.
Cliff, I guess, tested the waters, over the summer about the NBA, and I guess he decided to pull back and stay another year here. How often does that happen where players, I'm not talking just here at Rutgers, but nationally, they'll test the waters and then they'll pull back and stay another year?
The most exciting part, of Cliff is he came back to graduate. He's a dean's list student. It's almost refreshing in this day and age. He came back for academic reasons. He wants to graduate. His family wants him to graduate. And he's an outstanding student to finish that journey, because sometimes you lose sight of that journey. And when he first came here, he wanted to graduate. And then he had all these professional opportunities when he tested the waters, and he decided to come back, and we're thankful, for that. But when you recruit good players, they're going to have choices, and a lot of choices. Now with the portal and NIL, you got a lot of different. And if you can get people focused on what he originally came here to do, which was get better and graduate, and that's what he's done. And now he's going to be one of the all-time great Scarlet Knights, and couldn't be more proud of his career.
So for a basketball player such as Cliff, or any other player for that matter, how as you as a, not just a coach, but as a mentor these students to make the right decision, because that's potentially career changing for them. But in his case, he decided to stay in school, get a degree, and play some more. But when the players approach you without giving up confidentiality, what is your pitch that you make to these players on what they should and shouldn't do?
There's never really like a pitch. It's just facts, and I was excited that he went and tested the waters. He learned a lot. He worked out for a ton of NBA teams. He met with a lot of people. He has great people surrounding him. They sat in a room at the end of it. We got the feedback. And he had a lot of choices to make. And he chose to come back and graduate and help us try to win a national championship. So I think more stories should be written about those kind of people than the kids that are jumping in the portal every week. But our day and age, we write 20 stories about the portal and only a few stories about the guys that stay.
They actually stay along and graduate the full 4 years.
Yeah, and tip of the hat. And he's going to have a great year. And in 9 months now, he's going to have raised his value. He's going to have a degree in his pocket that no one could ever take from him. He may start his master's program, which is another journey that'll help him later on in life. And he's going to have more opportunities. And so he chose that route, and I'm thankful that he did.
Now, I think, if I remember correctly, if I'm wrong, I'm reading that the Big Ten is choosing him as one of the top 5 players in the league this coming year. And obviously he's very dominant in the paint. Where do you see him in relationship to his peers in the Big Ten as center inside the paint in the upcoming season?
Yeah, we certainly have a lot of really good players, but Cliff is one of the top centers in the entire country. Forget about our league. Zach Edey is the national returning player of the year. He's 7'5" from Purdue. And Cliff, I think they're the two best.
I believe Cliff played matched up well against him when you played Purdue.
Absolutely. And, he's one of the best, players, in the country, and he's gotten better every year. He's become an all-defensive player, too, which he improved from his freshman year to his junior year. He's going to be a double-double guy, which there's very few in the country that have double figures points and rebounds. And you're going to see an improved Cliff because every year he's done that. And going to have a great year and blessed to have him.
Yeah. Now, one of the other players that Mag is returning to the lineup, and periodically he's had some injuries. Will he be 100% for the upcoming season?
Absolutely. He's one of the best defenders in the country. I thought he was last year before his injury. He rehabbed as well as you can. He's practicing now in September, which is a blessing for us, and we expect him to be one of the best defenders in the country. He has to take Caleb McConnell's place, who is National Defender of the Year, and he's in Oklahoma City Thunder right now, and Mawat's got the ability to do that.
Well, speaking of which, you lost probably arguably one of the best defensive players in the history of the program. How do you fill that hole?
That's an important hole, really to fill. But Mawat is an unbelievable defender, and I think he could, fill that void too. But it's hard to replace the leading steals guy in school history. Yeah. We played a lot of basketball here for a lot of years, and he was the best at that. But he's another guy. He's a product of a program that just kept getting better. I'm real proud of him for that. First one in his family to graduate too, and he's off to the NBA. But with the departure of these guys comes opportunities for Derek Simpson, comes opportunities for Antoine Wolfalk, Antonio Chol. All these guys I think are really good players that are going to get more minutes now because, Caleb left. Yeah.
All right, so we're a couple weeks out from when the official practice starts on the NCAA rules, and the season will be starting behind us. When are you going to start zeroing in on your starting five? Are you going to wait till like a week out, or
Yeah, what? You never really get caught up in who your starting five is. You get caught up in the competition that after you go through that for a month, usually decides who the starting five is. We're blessed. Derek Simpson started games last year. Mawat Mag started. Cliff started. Andre Hyatt started. So we're blessed to have returning starters. Oscar Palmquist started games. So we have a lot of returning starters. It'll be really challenging this next month, and that usually decides who your starters are. But they usually decide that. Hopefully they stay healthy. That's the biggest part.
Well, I know that's always a wild card if somebody is injured, but, do you decide who's starting depending upon the team that's there? Because the only reason I'm asking this question is because there's a lot of lay people out there who don't know the ins and outs of how basketball strategy happens. But you're just saying basically whoever's the best going forward is going to start.
Yeah, and, you need to have a defender and a rebounder. Who's your best defender? We don't know yet. It's probably Mawat Mag, but until he gets back full speed. And who's your leading rebounder is Cliff. Those are the two guys I know. Our leading rebounder and best defender will be two of them, and then the rest kind of shape up your roster.
Yeah. Now, some of your out-of-conference games this year, Princeton being one of them. What's your thoughts about renewing that rivalry with Princeton?
I mean, we play Seton Hall on a league rival, obviously an in-state rival, and now Princeton on the schedule on a neutral site. Two of the great programs in New Jersey. We look to play all the teams, and we play NJIT, and we play Ryder. We like to play all the teams, in the state. So those are the two for this year. Excited about that, but always we play a top 40 schedule every year. It's very challenging at every turn. Those games will, sincerely be rivalry games and very difficult games, but we're looking forward to those.
I can remember as a child growing up here in Piscataway that the Rutgers, Princeton, whether it be football or basketball, was a big deal here on campus, especially in the 60s and 70s. I could distinctly remember my mom and dad taking us up for the first round game up at Providence when Rutgers played. They got by in a squeaker there by 1 point. In the 76 season when they made the run into the Final Four up there. But the Rutgers-Princeton game with the late coach Pikiell was always an interesting game with Rutgers, no matter who the coach was. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting. You get asked that question a lot, especially from the elder crowd
Yes.
that knows of the Princeton rivalry, the new graduates to Rutgers, they always want us playing Duke and Carolina and Kentucky. The older crew wants us playing Princeton, so it's kind of funny that, you go back and forth with what you do, but every year want to make a competitive schedule, have tremendous respect for, not just Princeton, but all the teams in the state of New Jersey are good. You saw what FDU did in the tournament this past year. So you like to play them all. You can only fit so many on your schedule, and your schedule is very complicated. It's, you got to have open dates. Yeah. You got to have, your time for taking final exams, and the week before you can't schedule games. Then you got league games that are played early in December that you got to block off, that you can't play out of conference games in. So it's like a real puzzle to put it all together. I'm thankful those schools wanted to play us. I'm thankful that Seton Hall wants to keep this rivalry going, because we took a year off there where we didn't want to play. And I've always wanted to play New Jersey teams. I've always wanted to play Seton Hall, and now we're making room for everybody else on the schedule too.
Well, all I know is that during the 76 run, my parents pulled my younger brother and I out of school and went to every away game.
There you go.
With the basketball team. So I don't think the teachers understood why there was always this excused absences. But it was something I always cherish and always remember as a kid growing up.
That's tremendous.
Assessing the strength of the Big Ten this year.
It's like every year, I think they're saying 8 or 9 teams are going to be ranked in the top 25. And then next year, when probably USC and UCLA are in that too. So now
we're going to get to that in a second. So
2 more teams down the road that are going to be in the top 25. But Michigan State's a top 5 team. I know preseason. I know Purdue is a top 5 team already. Preseason. We're going to play Illinois. Iowa's been a top 20 team for the last bunch of years. So. Our schedule is challenging. Hardest venues to play at on the road.
I was just going to ask you, what do you believe is the hardest venue, arena-wise?
In our league, I mean, all of them are very difficult. But Purdue, I'd say, is one of the toughest venues to play. For anyone. And quite honestly, I think Jersey Mike's now has become on everybody's list as a tough place to come and play.
Press reporting with the opposing coaches, they all agree that coming into the Jersey Mikes is obviously a formidable place to play in.
Which is a great sign, because we've come a long way with that, and thankful our students show up and the public shows up, and great state of New Jersey basketball fans show up and make it that way. But schedule's daunting every year, and great players, great coaches, great venues.
So speaking of scheduling, the Big Ten schedule, the way they're placed this year, how does that affect your planning for the season?
Just came out 5 minutes ago, so I told my guy.
That's why I was asking you.
It's crazy. It comes out very late, obviously based a lot on television, but we got to book some hotel rooms and get some flights in a hurry, because it just came out 5 minutes ago, and it's always challenging in so many different ways. Who you play, where you're playing games. We have Illinois, who's been a top 20 team. That's our first game in the league. And then we go on the road. We're at Iowa, and we're at Ohio State, 2 of the toughest venues, really good, great coaches. I think Ohio State has the best recruiting class in the league, and they have the most returning players. And Iowa has been producing NBA players for the last 5 years. So the job Fran McCaffrey does there is incredible. So daunting, challenging, but great basketball for basketball fans. So
in a couple of years, you said before that USC and UCLA will be coming into the league, as well as 2 other schools after that. How is that going to be a challenge for you and the staff going coast to coast for these away games? Well,
I tell you, it's more of a challenge for those schools, because every trip, just about, we'll take 1 trip out west every year, which will be an awesome trip. To go to LA will be great for our fans. We have a ton of alum out. And we'll get a great trip for our players. So what I understand is we'll be playing UCLA and USC on the same trip. Awesome. The following year, we'll go out to Oregon and Washington and play them on the train. Two great locations, too. So, it doesn't really affect us that much. We'd be taking a trip out west anyways. Now we have great teams, UCLA and obviously USC and Oregon and Washington, huge brands. And we have great alumni bases out in those places too. So I think I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, a great trip for us. It's obviously great for the league. We play in 3 time zones now, and we got 3 of the biggest media markets in Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York, and obviously New Jersey here.
And it's good. So to close out the show, I know you do a lot of recruiting around the country and stuff. When you're making recruiting a potential candidate, what's your main focus other than coming to Rutgers for the education value?
You know what, and that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. We're now ranked 15th, the 15th best public university in the country. I mean, there's a lot of public schools, and Rutgers is an elite academic institution in a great media market. Two of my kids, I have 4 kids, 2 of them are Scarlet Knights, and not only do I try to recruit and get your son to come, who happens to be a real talented basketball player, my own kids who could go on to a lot of places chose Rutgers too, but it's a great university. Great people here, in a robust area, Piscataway, one of the great cities. You know, there's a lot to offer here, and when they come and visit, they usually see it. And then they meet the people here, and it gives us a huge advantage. If they want great basketball, we have that in our league. If they want great football, the job Shiano's doing, you know, packing the football stadium, real exciting, 3-0 we're off to. Heading into Ann Arbor, a tough place.
But big house.
Don't count Coach Shiano out. He's done an awesome job. So it's a lot of excitement. I say buy stock now in Rutgers. It couldn't be higher.
It'll be on the NASDAQ soon. So last thing. What's your favorite beach at the Jersey Shore?
My favorite beach, you know, my favorite town is Lavallette.
Okay.
I love it down there, and have some great friends. As you can see, I don't get out in the sun a lot, so I don't get to the beaches very often. It's usually during basketball, you know, recruiting time. But I always love going down to Jersey Shore. Any place has been great. LBI has been a place that I've spent time at, and I look forward to getting to a lot of other places because I'm meeting a lot of Rutgers alums.
Your favorite food other than pork roll?
Oh, my favorite food. Well, my favorite restaurant is Steak 85 right here in town here, and I love a good steak. So
you can make Maddie happy with that.
Maddie's the best and deserves all the credit that he gets, but they treat me great over there, and it's one of the great places.
Since you like the restaurant, you must know the menu. Now, is it the strip or the Delmonico?
Unfortunately, I like Delmonico's unbelievable, but I like the filet. I think it's one of the best.
Okay, well, I want to thank the head basketball coach for Rutgers men's basketball coach, Coach Pikiell, for stopping in Piscataway and allowing us to film in the film room here, what the basketball team uses to watch film here. So one quick thing, what is it like in the film room here with all the players? Are they quiet or are they noisy?
I mean, sometimes they're quiet, but sometimes I like them involved in the film too. Depends on usually the wins or the losses. Usually I'm talking after the losses. They're a little bit more rambunctious after the W's.
Okay. All right, we're going to leave it at that, and thanks for coming on. And good luck to both you and the coaching staff and the team in the upcoming season.
Thanks so much. Look forward to this every year. Thanks for coming.
Good, Coach.
Pleasure.
Oh, well, we're at Sterling Village, and this is a senior center, and this is where people live 62 and above. Today we are donating school supplies to 2 schools. Our group, which is 25 of us at Sterling Village, and we are called the Sterling Voice. And we decided to give back, and we decided on the schools, the elementary schools. We did 2 schools last year, and we're doing 2 more schools this year. Oh, we're doing Grandview and Randolphville. Oh, as seniors, we tried to find a way to give back to the community. And first of all, we think about the teachers who are so dedicated to our children here in Piscataway. And we decided to give back some of the supplies so the teachers do not have to go into their pockets for them. Oh, it's about 25 of us that are dedicated to the Village Voice, and we meet every Thursday for 1 hour. And we started out as developing a community, getting to know each other and caring about each other. But in our conversation, they decided, what can we do for our community? And that's when we came up with the idea of giving back. So we would just like to have more members from Sterling Village join us and just give us a chance to know each other. If you live in Sterling Village and you would like to meet your neighbors, come out on Thursday morning. We meet at 10 o'clock and we get to know each other. We are concerned about each other. We want to know about the grandkids and what brought you here to Sterling Village.
So basically, this event is to help fundraise for the local fire departments. As you know, we're all volunteer. There's 6 fire companies in town. And we also try to now go and tie this in after the race with fire prevention stuff for the little kids. So that's really helps us. All the money helps. We're all a nonprofit. So the money we raise helps us pay for our heating of our firehouses, other activities we do to train. So that's what this event is really for, to help us fundraise.
October 28th. We're encouraging people to come out and sign up. It's a good way to get to meet your neighbors, but more importantly, get to meet your local volunteer firefighters here in town. To come out, burn some calories off, and get to meet some of the fine folks who volunteer to help public safety out in our township. For our next segment of I Am Piscataway in studio here, we're fortunate enough to have the Piscataway Township Fire Marshal, Robert Gorr, here in studio with me to talk about, since it's October, it's normally historically Fire Prevention Month, and talk about a little bit about fire prevention, a little bit about obviously safety. We've had over the last, say, 8 to 9 months, we've had some serious house fires in town. The causes of them are still under investigation. Whatever, I think fire safety should be 365 days a year as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm sure you would agree with that.
That's right, yes.
Fire environment. So Inspector Gorr, why don't you talk a little bit in generality? First of all, what does your office do? I mean, fire prevention, because I don't think a lot of folks in the general public, the lay folks out there, know exactly what the Fire Prevention Bureau does. And what role do you play in working with the volunteer fire companies here in town and on fire scenes?
First of all, the Fire Prevention Office, through the township, we inspect buildings, commercial, industrial, and what we do is there is a state fire code, and more or less it's a preventive maintenance code. So after a building has been established by the construction department, it's vacant, or somebody erects a new building, they have standards they go by the building department. So what we do, we come in basically 6 months to a year after, ensuring that those safeguards are still in place, meaning exit lights, exit ways are clear, that the sprinkler system is being maintained and tested, which has to be once a year. So not only do we inspect buildings, but we also outreach into doing fire prevention programs throughout the township to different organizations, as well as working with anybody who has any concerns through phone calls, that they turn around and they have any fire questions regards to their house. So it's just not Fire Prevention Month throughout the United States in October of each year, but we also answer these questions, and we also help the residents by going out and seeing what they have and telling them about their safeguards, about the storage of gasoline or storage of lawnmowers or anything from an apartment to condos. Usually, like in condos, what they do is they store gas dryers and washers that are in there, but they also put, because the space is limited, they put stuff in there. So we try to ensure them fire safety tips.
So in other words, you want to make sure that residents, especially if they're living in small facilities, that there's not clutter where there should be clutter.
Correct.
Especially where there's combustible, like you have gas furnaces, hot water heaters, depending upon whether it's gas or electric or whatever.
Correct. So we do this on the Fire Prevention Office is open 365 days a year, 7 days a week. We don't shut down. If somebody calls, we pick up the call, or we go out to the site, and we also, like I said, even industrial, they want to know about fire safety plans.
Now let's talk about that for a minute. Just before, you were talking about looking at plans. Now, when there is a large industrial application, so to speak, that may be new, you have an opportunity to review the plans to make sure that they're putting sufficient amount of hydrants and/or water suppression systems. Granted, they do have architects that have to abide by the state codes and everything, but it's your job, basically, and your staff to review the plans and make sure, as well as the fire commissioners, to make sure that they're doing everything accordingly.
Correct. We look at the roadways, make sure there's accessibility in and around. We look at what kind of suppression systems they have. They have computer rooms. There's all different types of suppression besides water. We also make sure that there's exits, entranceways, adequate means to go around, not just for the fire, but for police and also for ambulance calls.
Now, when you say systems, I mean, not every fire suppression system deals with water.
No, you have computer rooms, which they use a different type of chemical, an agent that's not water. Same thing in main electrical rooms, you can't put water on it, so they have suppression systems.
Which seems sensible.
Correct.
I mean, because you know from growing up as a kid, if there's ever a live wire in the road, especially in water, you don't go in, don't go near it because it
Yes.
transmits electricity through it. But I guess a lot of people may or may not know that when they're fighting a fire at, say, a structure fire, first thing you do, you try to get the utility company, in this case PSE&G, out there to take the meter off and shut power to that, so they can possibly dump water on the fire.
Correct, same thing. Now what we're facing over the last 10 years is solar panels on roofs. A lot of people, their solar panels are placed on the back of the roof, which when you pull up to the street, you don't know if there's nothing because you don't see them in the front, but you got to survey the whole property in general. So we get a list from the construction department, which we share with the volunteer fire departments. Anything with generators, generators are run off of either the natural gas, because after a utility has been shut off, things can still run. You still got generators that a lot of people do.
Like, for instance, the community center has 2 natural gas generators.
Correct. So they know where shutoffs are, the main utility areas where you can sever those ties by shutting off the electric or having public service shut the gas off into the facility. But with the site plans, we look at general fire safety measures and fire lane striping in front of a building, just like they do with handicap parking in front of the building. We look at if fire lanes are needed, and if they are, this way there's accessibility. The main thing is to make sure that the business owner doesn't, for their safety of the building itself, their contents, and the people that work there, and also for the volunteers who respond.
Now, one of the issues that people like. Let's talk a little bit about solar. General public, some people are concerned about having solar, say hypothetically, on their roofs. What is the probability of a solar array or a panel catching fire? If it's installed correctly.
If it's installed correctly, but over a period of time, you don't know. It's just like
wires may fray.
It might fray. There might be
a squirrel might get in there and
correct.
chew something.
Yeah, there's wires that are underneath. It goes through, and plus the wiring that goes through the house to go to the side of your house where the solar panel meter is. It's a block where you can shut it off and turn it on. So anything electrical, anything that's even manufactured could fail. We had a couple of those recently, and
I think one of them was in a commercial site.
That's correct. And that
I know everybody saw it out there. It was Lowe's. We'll say
correct. That was suppressed very quickly by the fire department. And it wasn't that much. There was some damage, but it could have been worse. And
yes,
they
it could have been
suppressed
worse.
So everybody worked together, even the volunteers as well as our office and the construction department, to get them back up and running. And they were back up and running, matter of fact, the next day.
Yes, they were. I think a lot of people were surprised at that.
Correct. So we all had hands in the township to make sure that the businesses are safe and the people. As you may mention before, what do we do with the fire companies? We go out, we investigate fires. If they have a house fire, any type of fire that's unknown, undetermined, in their eyes, they call us out, and we go in and we have special training into the evaluation, working with ourselves, and we have other law enforcement agencies such as the county. There's other agencies that could be involved, as well as insurance companies hire private firms to go out and do investigations. So we try to determine as best as we can what the cause is. And then that's working with the insurance companies. So we assist them, and we also assist the fire companies as well. If they go on a fire alarm call, let's say in a residential or anywhere, business, anything in the township, that we assist trying to find out why the alarm went off, try to have them fix it, the person fix it, and also they get it back up and running.
Now, I want to stay on the residential side for a second. One of the biggest problems that we have, especially in the apartment complexes and or condos, people unfortunately have a tendency, if they want to go out on their balcony and smoke a cigarette, they don't necessarily extinguish the cigarette. They'll flick it out sometimes, and what happens is over time it hits dry mulch and causes a fire eventually. It smolders. We've had a couple of those in the last couple of years that caused serious fires because somebody was careless and smoking and not extinguishing their cigarette correctly. As they said, dipping it in water by flicking it, anything can happen.
Yeah, well, usually too, as well as them flicking the cigarette, or they had, there's different people that use candles and so forth for whatever reason. They even put it outside in their small balconies, but because the space everywhere is so limited, when you go out on a balcony, they put more things than it should be out there. You can have anywhere from recyclable containers, you have cardboard, that's an outside storage area with the overhang. So people, they have electric barbecues can catch fire.
Speaking of which, that happened at Society Hill, right? There was somebody was barbecuing something.
That's undetermined at this point.
Yeah, okay, all right. But that's one of these things first of all, you're not legally entitled to do something like that.
Yeah, well, usually they banded that you can't use the charcoal and so forth, but they have little propane cylinders. Some people have the smaller ones, or they have their own. They can go out and buy a regular grill you would use in your big residential setting, and they'll put it on their balcony.
Which is a recipe for disaster, because if the wind ever picks up, the heat from the grill could potentially catch the siding.
That's correct. Usually what they do, a lot of people, what they do, they don't remember. They go out and something's hot, like hot grease from a stove. They pour it outside. Oh, there's an old wastebasket outside.
Yeah.
Or they light something, or they discard something outside. They smoke a cigarette, but it's not just them putting it in the container, like you said. It's also the element of the wind. You got different humidities and different levels. Things can smolder, and that's the reason why smoke detectors everywhere it's an early warning stage, so the fire doesn't get out of control to get people out. Because when you have that, it's an early warning device to say, okay, I have an incident. But there's people that they just turn around and discard stuff. It doesn't have to be a cigarette.
I remember it was almost 10 years ago over by Mindy Lane that somebody was smoking on their thing, and they just threw it in the mulch pile where the flowers were, and then the next thing, and it happened to be a very windy day. Next thing you know, the whole building burnt down.
Correct. It was like a 30-mile-an-hour day where it was an open field behind that complex, and that took off because the wind was just going in the directions. It's just like trying to fan a campfire.
Yeah.
And the flames got bigger and bigger, and things over time burned.
So when you work with the fire commissioners and the volunteer fire companies, in these large complexes, like say an industrial zone or commercial property, walkthroughs do take place, so the first responders get familiar where all the safety features are in these large structures. Yeah,
there's businesses that offer a pre-plan, like when they move in, they want to be familiar. We do that because we have to do it to the inspection, but we also, the fire departments, if they're welcome, they either can contact us or they contact the people. And everybody in this township who owns a business, they're very receptive about safety. No matter if it's fire safety or not, they welcome people so that you get familiar with not just the place, just through a walkthrough, but they also give you a set of plans of where the main utilities are.
And they have where the knockbox, the keys
correct.
Are in emergency.
There's an emergency box that happened years ago, quite a few years ago, that there's a lockbox that's outside the wall. It's a small vault, and no one can get into it. There's a special key used by the fire department, and when the police and the fire department arrive, instead of that, now a responder could be a half hour or hour away, they can get in there quickly and find out if there's anything, and the responder's on their way. So you don't want it doesn't damage any property, because they would have keys to get in and see if there's a problem or not. You can have a false alarm, but it's
and that
a
happens,
safeguard.
those low flow pressure sensors in the fire suppression systems actually, give false readings every once in a while, and then, naturally, by law, the fire companies have to respond.
Correct. Anytime the alarm gets submitted through it, they call a central station like a burglar alarm. It goes through a third-party monitoring station 24/7. An alarm comes in. It could be, like you said, a water flow alarm, means that there could be a fluctuation in the water pipe that's in the ground on the street, and just like a sprinkler. If it goes off, there's a gauge that's on there, it's going to call for water, and it's be a drop in pressure. You can have a drop in pressure because of a water main break or more use of a business that the use goes off and it sets off the sensitivity. And then the sprinkler contractor that's licensed by the state, they come in and they service that and they look at that because it could be a worn clapper valve that's inside the pipe, or it could be something defective or getting ready to be worn. And
I have a question. There was a question that came up in front of one of the boards. Like the planning board, is that one of the large companies is going to be on a site's going to be building over an industrial area over there by the off of Bakeland Avenue. There was a question. One of the residents asked a question about a firebox that's out there. It's separated, and basically it's a heated box with the pipes that come out of the ground. So it's for fire suppression system out there. I guess they didn't understand. It's just a small thing that keeps heated, so none of the valves that have to move in an emergency, in the middle of the winter, that it's there. That's what it's there for.
And the same thing with the fire departments sometimes do, and also it gets tested by the water company, the fire hydrants. Valves, just like anything else, can freeze over time, and what it does, it keeps things easy so it doesn't break.
We unfortunately had an experience at the municipal government where on the 5th floor of the Sterling Village, going back 10 plus years ago, we had an issue up there where the dry suppression system, for whatever reason, failed, and then we had water that came down all the way down to the 1st floor, and obviously it was rectified, but we're in the process now of working with the engineering company to revamp our entire suppression system to bring it further up to code. And that building was built 30 years ago. Now we're installing a new code, so we're going to start the top floor each year and working our way down. So, which is a good thing. You always want the most modern codes, if possible, if you can install that, because they're there for a reason and they're there to save lives.
Yeah, because over a period of time, they always find, just like in anything, they find something better, a replacement to enhance something that's older. It goes through a theory of, check and balancing systems. It could be negative and positive, and they find out how to better something that they already made.
And it's just like no different with somebody, a homeowner or somebody who may be renting, infrastructure inside your domicile there, like faucets don't last forever, valves don't last forever, and that's why you have to keep on top of those systems, especially where the high density dwellings are, because it has the tendency, if you don't keep on, and if something happens, you're not just affecting one unit, you're potentially affecting a whole building, but may have like 10 to 16 units to a building, give or take how old it is.
Correct. As you always make upgrades, just like with the years ago, it was taught throughout the country that you replace their battery every year. Now it's a 10-year battery life. So
as much as they say that
it doesn't
manufacturing nothing lasts that long.
No.
Any batteries, I go ahead and I still replace it, once a year.
Correct. But they came out with the market as well as they came out with other things regards your CO meters that you put in your house. If you look on the back, they only last a few years. So it's best whenever you check, when you buy a CO meter, they call public service, they call the fire department, because that depletes the oxygen out of the air from a fuel burning appliance within wherever you live. But if you look on the back, they're only good for a few years. So if you have anything that's well over 5 years in a carbon monoxide alarm, you can see it's stamped on the back, either plug-in or the one that you put on the wall, screw in the wall. It's best to replace that. And the time what people, they say, oh, my alarm's going off, it's a very slow beep every like 2 minutes, meaning that it's just not the battery or electric, it's the little diode that's inside, a sensor. They go bad after a period. Their shelf life has depleted itself. So you always got to replace it, and it's always good to check it, no matter what. If it's a year or 6 months, it's always good to keep them clean. A lot of people, they say, how do I clean it? Sometimes people, what they do is they have a vacuum, they clean it out. You have rugs, it kicks up the dust off the rugs or the settlements, and it goes upwards. But it's just general housekeeping. And it's a good time, I think, in fire prevention in October, because more people are in their dwellings than they are out because of the summer.
And also, that is normally the time when folks are transitioning out from running their air conditioning units to running their heating systems.
Correct. And that's when it's time, when the air conditioner, usually that condenser, the piece that's outside, now you're reverting everything back to your furnace. So you got, usually the water heater, you have the furnace. Like I said, in smaller units that are condos or townhouses, you don't have that big, larger room. But that's like where you store your mops, your brooms, you store newspapers, especially with water heaters. Just make sure it needs air. Everything needs air to breathe, and you need breathable space. And then you gotta check that before you change your furnace filter, because what you're doing is you're heating up the gases that are in the burner, and it's creating heat throughout your ductwork. But what happens is it's taking the air with inside your building, and usually that eventually gets clogged over time, or dirt on the filter. So it's good to check it at least every 30 days. So this way, no matter where you live, and if you don't know how to do it, you should turn around, either ask the neighbor, or if you have a maintenance.
It's not that hard.
No, but some people like to have other people do it for them. But you should have somebody, if you don't know, ask. And believe me, people will do things for you.
I mean, like for instance, in my own home, I change the filters out every 3 months. But you know, and I have a maintenance plan where, you know, in the fall and in the spring they come in and take care of both units right there at the maintenance, and that's a lot. That's I mean, that's the joys of owning a home, or, you know, owning a condo. But, you know, the more that you keep it maintained up there, the less likely something serious will happen.
Correct.
If you're a homeowner, do you go, if people have questions, do you go out and take a look if there's a question on a safety asset pertaining to?
If they have a question and they want us to look, we usually tell them, if it's serious, we'll go out there and assist them. We're not going to do it for you because it's not our ability, but we can give them the right direction and maybe who should be called and what you should do. Just like even after a fire case, is there a fire or something happened in the business? We always tell them, no one just walks away. We ask questions. You have any questions of us? We tell them what to do. But if somebody does call us, even in a business space, we go and we assist them to ensure that they're getting the proper safety and they understand. We don't just say, don't get this person. We explain why things happen, and this is why it's good for you, why your equipment will last longer, plus it'll be safety, because a lot of times it's just not when you're home, but it could be out of home. Biggest thing is a lot of people have been cooking and they leave it's still going on, that they leave the stove on and they go out to run an errand. And then you have smoke pouring out of a place, and they're in a hurry, but you just got to take that extra minute just to shut everything off. Even if you're inside, you can go in your bedroom, or you can go somewhere on the couch and fall asleep. It can still, you come back and all of a sudden you got a fire in your kitchen.
Well, one of the, also that's pertaining to kitchen, like I have actually fire extinguisher up in the kitchen. I always joke because of my wife's cooking, but in all seriousness though, that even if you have a small little fire thing, that helps. But, you know, pick up the phone and call if something serious obviously is going on.
Correct. The first thing
something could get out of hand very quickly.
The first thing is to call 911.
Yep.
Don't try to fight the fire. Don't even, if you don't know how to use the extinguisher, don't try. The best thing is just to get out. But the first thing we tell everybody is call 911. And the same thing, like we said, have a fixed set of numbers for emergency purposes. A lot of people put them on a refrigerator because basically everybody has a refrigerator. If you always focus, because when the time comes, when the alarm goes off, you could be sleeping or you could just be normal when you're up. A lot of people know it'll be muscle memory about going to the refrigerator. Here's all my emergency numbers, because some people even forget 911.
Yeah. Now, I know another issue that causes a lot of home fires is unattended candles. What are you suggesting to people that obviously don't leave a candle on in the middle of the night unattended?
Well, we tell a candle's on a table or any type of setting, that table should be basically clear. You have to leave at least 1 foot distance away from the candle. And usually the candle that you can buy in a store, a lot of people buy different types of candles at different places. Some are a little bit less expensive than the others. You should get a secured flat container and put it in there. It might not look decorative enough for you, but it's for safety. Because a lot of objects, what they do, something could fall on it. You can even have if you have an animal at home, you can knock it over. We had that cases sometimes where an animal comes up, knocks something, and it's like a domino effect. Knocks onto the candle, and then it ignites something like any type of stuff that's on the table.
All right. What other safety features that residents should have at their home that, other than what's required by smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors? I actually have a fire extinguisher on every floor of my house. I'm a rarity, but I have a firefighter that lives in my house, so there's one up by actually every bedroom has a fire extinguisher.
The biggest thing that we tell people, and it's for years, a lot of people don't think it's necessary, but there should be a plan that people draw up or have in their mind
on how they're going to evacuate.
Yeah, because when you're sleeping, especially at night, here's a good analogy. When you're sleeping in the middle of the night, you get up woken by the alarm. There is some alarms that they make now that they talk. Fire alarm, fire, 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 or CO alarm. But when that alarm goes off, you wouldn't believe how people can get and confused what to do. And it's a simple thing. You can say, okay, if you have an animal, who's going to get the animal? Or can you get the animal wherever that call or that case is?
And where should you meet?
Yeah, and the biggest thing is to meet outside. Don't try to go inside. But if everybody, you can assist people, because there is people that need assistance to get out of their house medically or whatever. They need help, so you got to know you got to help them first if you can. And then you got to, when the emergency responders get there, police and fire and EMS, you should tell them what's in there. And then, because a lot of people,
especially like if there's somebody's on an oxygen tank.
Correct.
There's oxygen there.
Correct.
Fire and oxygen tanks don't mix well.
No. They usually, the medical companies now, over the period of years, it got better than what it used to be. They send notices out ahead of time to the emergency people, and they say this person has oxygen, and this is the case. But that doesn't mean, like you said, you have a spare cylinder, you have a portable, walkable oxygen. It ain't like the canisters that people remember. So there's all kinds of things that happen with people. If there's someone that medically is on some type of machine, the EMS people would know.
And that's where, before we close out this segment, that's where the emergency management comes into play, where we keep a list through the PD of households where there's special needs issues there. So when the volunteer firefighters or the police show up, they already know through the computer system that there's an issue at that household.
Correct. There's been notices sent out to all, throughout the police department, to everybody in Piscataway, to list emergency contact numbers, any specialty items that or special needs that people have. So that's always updated. So we're all trying to get more pre-planned to make things happen
Before
better.
they're giving me the wave off to cut this segment out, people with chimeneas out in their backyards.
We tell people, the state law says that you can have the chimeneas, but the item is, it has to be seasoned dried wood. Anything that don't emit a lot of smoke and at least 25 feet away from your house.
And we've had issues where
Property line.
people forgot that they were running and then that started
Correct.
a fire outside.
Correct.
Okay, so with that, I want to thank our fire marshal, Bob Gorr, for stopping by here at Piscataway for October to remember a little bit about fire safety and stop by and visit your local firehouse. I know some of the firehouses are going to have fire prevention safety courses going on or meet their fellow volunteers, citizens out there throughout the month of October. So with that, thanks again, Bob,
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
everybody enjoy the afternoon. It's going to be a beautiful weekend coming up. Please get out there and enjoy. And we are having, I believe, a 5K race coming at the end of October for the volunteer fire folks out here on the community center. So if you want to walk it to participate, you can still walk it to participate. So enjoy the afternoon. Enough of the speeches. Let's get back to the music. No dancing on the tables. I draw the line on that.
Piscataway Police Department wishes you a happy and safe school year.